I have the distinct honor and privilege to introduce someone I have never met, but would love to give her a huge hug and sit and pick her brain for hours and hours and hours. It's my friend Liz Glenister from across the pond. She has been so instrumental on getting Hypopara noticed out in Europe and abroad. She's been named as Volunteer of the Year for, was it UK, I think? And she has just done wonders. I call her number 2 in parathyroid, hypoparathyroid, and I call Jim number 1. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Liz Glenister from UK Parathyroid.
Thank you very much, Deb. That's lovely, and hugs to you too. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you very much, the association, for organising this event online and making sure that so many more patients could join you this year. It's brilliant. It's been great to meet you, to put names to faces, and to learn about all the great work you've been doing. So I'm going to briefly tell you about Parathyroid UK and what we've been up to and where we're going on our journey. And then I want to use this opportunity to talk a little bit about managing our calcium levels and how we might need to do that. So first slide, please. So first, a little history. For those who don't know about us, we were set up in 2005, originally as HPTH UK and later Hypopara UK, thanks to a grant of £300 from the USA Hypopara Association, whose newsletter had appeared online. What a great day that was. At that time, it was just me trying to find others like me, not wanting others to go through the same trauma, and also wanting to provide some information, as there simply wasn't any. So that grant, that wonderful grant, paid for our first website, which I wrote along with an information leaflet. And I then gathered together some incredible specialists, all of whom are still with us today, and set about raising awareness about Hypopara, which so few people, including doctors at that time, had heard about. I was frequently told, oh, you mean hyperparathyroidism, or there are no symptoms with hyperparathyroidism. It was quite a battle. The prevalence of Hypopara in the UK wasn't known then, and it still isn't, but it's thought to be similar to the Danish study, which was around 22 per 100,000. So eventually I realised that to be heard we needed a louder, more powerful voice, so I began to reach out around the world to talk about trials, form new patient groups and networks, and to bring people together globally with a global brand. If you ever wondered why groups around the world all adopt a butterfly logo and we have a World Awareness Day, that was me. And it's very exciting to see our family growing together and coming together to help make a difference as we are today. I pay my respects to James Sanders, who I was very happy to meet in Florence when we went for a management guideline conference, and hopefully we paid that initial grant forward, and it'll be the gift that just keeps on giving. Next slide, please. Last year, with the support of our medical advisors, Hypopara UK rebranded to become Parathyroid UK. So like the thyroid and pituitary charities, we kind of decided to own the gland. And it actually properly represents the work that we've been doing, supporting and campaigning and promoting research for patients with all parathyroid conditions. And actually this move has been very beneficial for increasing awareness and recognition of hypoparathyroidism, especially as doctors work on both. So we tend to meet even more doctors that way. Today, as well as our medical advisors, I've been lucky enough to be supported by some wonderful volunteers who've helped to run a very dedicated management committee and support team. We have no paid staff at all. They're all patients, and I'd like to pay tribute to all of them, old and new, for doing the most amazing job keeping us going through thick and thin, despite the demands of their own lives and health. They've given time, energy and love to a cause that they really believe in, mainly because they want to give back to the organisation that helped them and make a difference to people's lives. And it's the same in every group and in your own American organisation too. So if you're watching and you've been helped, just raise a glass or your cup of coffee or your World Hypopara Awareness mug and thank all those volunteers. We couldn't do it without you. So what do we do at Parathyroid UK? We focus on providing support and reliable information for our members and their families and carers, and we raise awareness and funds and promote research. Because of the nature of the condition, patient support is our absolute top priority, daily priority. We set up a forum in 2005 and led the way on Facebook with the first ever Hypopara patient support group, and we've now got 4 of those groups: Hyper in the UK, a Europe network and a world group as well. And I'll talk, our Hypopara group is very busy, and I'll talk a bit more about what happens there later on. Next slide, please. As well as the support groups, I run a telephone helpline, and like James, it's pretty busy. We provide information via our website and patient information leaflets. We've been setting up local groups for people to meet face to face, currently online, to help break the isolation of living with the condition, which is even more marked at the moment in these tough times. And as our condition is lifelong, we work really hard to create a warm and caring group for our Hypopara family to come to, and to meet each other and share advice and their experiences. We work through lockdown, supporting our patients, and with our advisors we've produced COVID guidelines, which are on the Society for Endocrinology website at the moment. Next slide, please. In response to our members' frequent hospital admissions and crises, we also developed a medical emergency card. It's plastic, it's the size of a credit card, it's writable, so you can put your information on it, and it's very popular. Next slide, please. In terms of awareness, we've worked really hard to increase recognition of the existence of Hypopara and to further understanding of it to patients, the public and professionals. We've taken part in lots of events over the years on Rare Disease Day and World Awareness Day in particular. We've fundraised, we've attended parliamentary receptions, we've been in the national papers, radio, in magazines. For patients, as many of you know, we run an annual patient get-together to celebrate World Awareness Day on the 1st of June every year on Facebook, gathering, I think 27 countries was the last count, which is just the most amazing and most moving day, and everybody produces incredible artwork, meets old and new friends, and greets each other thanks to Facebook Translate. And so many of you join in. It'd be really great to see everybody, and even more next year. It's a very long day for us because we're joined by patients across the globe, starting in New Zealand and ending 24 hours later in South America. But it's an intensely moving day, seeing everyone come together. Next slide, please. For the medical profession, our focus is strongly on raising awareness and promoting research, exhibiting and presenting at conferences around the world, which is very productive. I know you started to do this recently, and it's really a great thing to do. Not only can the attending doctors see our wares and realise that we exist, but it's a great place to network and to talk about the research that we need to be talking about. We work closely with the UK and European Societies for Endocrinology, the British Association of Endocrine and Thyroid Surgeons, and the British Thyroid Association. And we've been involved in the first Hypopara guidelines developed in 2015 and 2016, and the accompanying patient leaflets, which you can find on our website. We also present at medical training days in hospitals and to research teams. Last year, for example, we spent a day in Southampton talking to trainee surgeons to tell them about Hypopara and how losing their parathyroids can impact the patients. And hopefully they'll remember our graphic descriptions of what a real hypo looks and feels like. We talk to research teams too, who value the opportunity to understand the patients they're working so hard to help. And we also present to pharmaceutical companies and have been involved in the development of a number of trial protocols and workshops, both in the UK and with other Hypopara group leaders in Europe. Next slide, please. In collaboration with Shire, we carried out a quality of life survey of 230 patients living with Hypopara, with shocking findings on their ability to live a normal life. 76%, for example, found their condition had an impact on relationships and their ability to interact with friends and family, and 68% on their ability to maintain full or part-time employment. You can read this in full on our website. Next slide, please. We've been involved in a number of research studies, which has been very good for everybody. I'm now in part of the management group on a new 4-year study by Mr. Balasubramaniam in Sheffield, surgeon in Sheffield, trialling a near infrared device to identify parathyroid glands during surgery, which is very exciting. And there's also work happening on calcium receptor research as well. We have got stem cell research going on, but that is paused at the moment due to lack of funding. But we hope to be able to contribute to that. I've been delighted to be a co-author on the burden of illness study, a 13-country patient and caregiver study sponsored by Takeda, which looks at the knowledge gaps about the condition and is the first study to look at the impact of Hypopara on carers and patients. Next slide, please. With my husband, Bill, I've also taken part in a podcast with Takeda on this subject too, and several of our committee have also made videos and podcasts on the impact of hypoparathyroidism on various aspects of their lives. And there have been several thousand watches and listens to those, which is a fantastic way of getting the word out there. Next slide, please. I'm sorry to be reading for notes, but my brain is not what it was, and I don't want to leave you hanging. So, parathyroid hormone, where are we with that? We were closely involved in the REPLACE study, but we didn't get NAPPARA when you did. NICE, which is our equivalent to FDA, say they were unable to make a recommendation on it because Shire didn't provide an evidence submission. So Shire chose instead to gather more evidence, and that's what's happening right now in the UK, the BALANCE study, which is running in a few sites across the UK and is going very well. We have a few doctors who have successfully applied for NAPPARA on exceptional funding or compassionate grounds, very few. But we do have a problem with access to the drugs for patients who have completed the trial in certain parts of the country due to local authorities being unable or unwilling to meet the costs. And this is obviously a big problem, and we really hope it will be resolved. Also, as the UK leaves Europe after Brexit, we're finding that UK regulations are making it harder for us to engage in trials or access resources in the same way. So we're waiting anxiously to see what will happen. Hopefully things will resolve. Patients are also reporting some difficulties in accessing drugs, so we're hoping that we won't be affected by potential shortages either. This could be a difficult time for us coming up over this winter, so we'll keep you posted. We work hard to address issues that affect our members, and we work really closely with our incredible medical advisors. They take our concerns very seriously, and they spend a lot of time trying to educate general endocrinologists who don't know much about hyperparathyroidism. And they attempt to put our needs into practice via research and trials and surveys. 2 examples: a survey by surgeon Radu Mihai, who wanted to know what we thought about autotransplantation, and was very surprised at our unanimously positive response. And secondly, I explained to Professor Turner that across the UK, patients might receive completely different treatment immediately after surgery in terms of testing frequency and the medications they're prescribed, and this can give them widely different experiences and greatly impact their recovery. So Professor Turner has taken this on board, gathered a team, and we devised a survey that was sent out to all endocrine departments in the country. That data is now collected, and we hope it will help us develop the first standardised protocol for post-surgical treatment in the UK, so patients can have impact. Next slide, please. So this brings me on to what I really want to talk about. The biggest problem for people living with hypopara is managing their calcium levels. A large number of our members in the UK struggle with this, as do people all around the world, and receive no guidance on how to manage their calcium levels, and there's very little understanding by their doctors of the severe and often daily impact this has on their lives and their ability to function in the world. Some people are being under or over-treated by their doctors and end up in hospital as a result, and others are often left on high doses of calcium and very little alpha-calcium or Caltrol following surgery. Compounding this problem is the lack of understanding by some doctors around vitamin D. Patients are frequently told they don't need vitamin D3 because they're already on alpha-calcium or Caltrol, being the active form, but they do. As this is advice from our specialists and it's enshrined in the European Hypopara guidelines, this can be very difficult for patients. And as for magnesium, why do you need that? So we're hugely grateful to our wonderful specialists and advisors who give so much time to supporting our needs and educating trainees, nurses and new consultants about hypopara management. But the fact remains that many endos don't know how to manage hypopara, testing is not easily accessible, and patients are left to self-manage. And this is the situation still all over the world. So this next section is for you, the people not on PTH, trying to stop the drop. When your calcium drops, what do you do? If you were a diabetic, you'd get out your little home tester, but we can't do that yet. And nor do all of us have replacement hormone to hand. Imagine the outrage if these weren't available for diabetics, and that's the price we pay for being rare, of course. In my case, I've had brittle post-surgical hyperparathyroidism for 28 years now. And in the early years, I was undiagnosed for some years and left to self-manage. So I was on 15 Sandocal tablets and 1 microgram of alpha-calcium, which is roughly equivalent to 0.50 Rocaltrol. So undertreated, basically, and pretty much living at accident and emergency. So I learned a great deal about managing my medication, and discovered early on that I was severely deficient in vitamin D3 and magnesium. And eventually found a supportive endo and GP, and got more regular testing. And so after many years of learning the hard way, I actually managed to come off all my calcium and realised that with enough alpha-calcidol and enough vitamin D3 and enough magnesium, all of those working together to help absorb calcium in the body, I could get most of the calcium I needed from my diet. So today I don't take any calcium at all. My levels are much more stable. I take a calcium tablet occasionally, maybe a quarter of a tablet, maybe once every couple of weeks when I feel I need a top up urgently, or I'm having a bit of a bad hypo, then I'll take half a tablet perhaps, and that seems to be enough to bump up. I felt much better. I had more energy and strength. My levels were more stable, and my urine calcium levels, which had been twice the upper dose, were normal. Next patient, next slide, please. So these are some quotes from patients who have done the same thing, come off their calcium levels, come off their calcium tablets. Sorry, you can see I'm a bit brain foggy today. So today in the UK, we use this no or low calcium management protocol, which was approved by our advisors after daily vitamin D3 and magnesium were recommended in the ESE guidelines in 2015. I brought this information to our group and began to teach it, and it's now standard patient education with members educating each other. Next slide, please. Evidence for this protocol is given in this next study, which I'm very pleased to be a co-author, and which arose when this patient behaviour was noted by another doctor. It's called, Is Calcium Supplementation Always Needed in Patients with Hypoparathyroidism? Dr. Al-Sharefi approached us about a patient who wanted to come off calcium tablets because she'd heard us do this, and so we carried out a survey of 330 members at Parathyroid UK, and Dr. Al-Sharefi also ran a trial of 24 patients. The case note review found that target range serum calcium levels were successfully achieved in all 24 patients since transitioning to a no calcium regimen, without any breakthrough hypercalcemia related symptoms, or the development of new renal stones, or the occurrence of calcium related hospital admissions, or the finding of significant hypercalciuria. The online survey identified 36% of hypopara patients who continued to take activated vitamin D, but had discontinued calcium supplements. Hypopara patients not currently taking calcium reported a significantly lower prevalence of adverse effects and outcomes, both compared with their previous experiences whilst taking calcium, and also compared with the 64% of patients who continued to take oral calcium. The study concluded that, subject to methodological limitations, there are significant issues of tolerability arising from conventional calcium-based treatment regimens for patients with chronic hypoparathyroidism. For selected patients, it may be reasonable to facilitate a managed therapeutic transition to a no calcium regime, and we also propose that calcium-based regimes be prospectively evaluated against calcium-free or calcium-low alternatives. So, how to do it? Next slide, please. On our website is this self-help guide for people with hypopara. And there's very detailed information there. I do recommend you have a look. When you're making any changes at all, it's really important to remember to take things gradually. We always say baby steps, just remember baby steps. This is one of the biggest problems of people ending up in hospital, is that doctors have a very cavalier attitude to dosing, but really very small changes can cause dramatic changes in symptoms. So that really must be remembered. And also do it with support of your doctor and with ongoing regular tests. You can reduce your calcium tablets very gradually by breaking off small amounts. It's that simple. Just start breaking bits off. As you go, you might need to increase your row counter or alpha-calcium very slightly, or you may find that increasing the calcium in your diet is enough. If you break off a little quarter, have a glass of milk instead. What you eat is really key to managing hypoparathyroidism. I can't stress that enough. And you can get enough calcium from a plant-based diet, keeping dairy to a minimum to protect your kidneys. Too much dairy isn't good for us, but there are plenty of foods out there that have calcium in them that aren't dairy. Keep dairy for emergencies and when you need to really top up fast. If you still need to take 1 or 2 calcium tablets, which you know, that's okay. 1 to 2 is okay. More than that is not. Always take them with food, especially with large or meat-heavy meals, which will put a strain on your kidneys as well.
Liz, just letting you know you have about 2 minutes left.
Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. So finally, I'm really delighted to introduce you to a true hypopara hero. His name is Tom Kurtzowiński, and he's a consultant pancreatic and endocrine surgeon at the University College London Hospitals, Royal Free Hospital and Great Ormond Street Hospital for Children in London. Tom approached me back in 2014 to tell me he'd invented a home calcium tester. I know. I introduced him to Shire, who kindly agreed to sponsor us, and work was able to continue. And here are some slides he's sent me to show you. Next slide, please. He posed the question, is the measuring of ionized calcium at home and at the bedside in 30 seconds possible and desirable? And he presented the facts to show that it was. At UCL, he does around 150 thyroid operations and around 60 to 70 parathyroid operations every year. These patients need blood tests every day after surgery to assess calcium concentrations in blood to avoid complications. And as well as that, people managing conditions like hypopara need regular and frequent monitoring, a fact stated in the ESC and Canadian guidelines. And we all know that when you need a test, you need it now. And you need the result now too, not next week. So the need was very clear. Next slide, please. Next, to find out if it was possible, a pilot study was set up. The device was tested repeatedly. Precision was assessed by comparing multiple measurements of the same solution tested on the same prototype, and it's proved to be both accurate and precise. Next slide, please. Results also showed that ionized calcium can be used instead of total calcium to diagnose hypocalcemia in patients undergoing surgery and by patients at home within a few seconds. It's portable, it's cost effective, and it's easy to handle. It's been presented at various conferences last year and very well received. It works. So now the next step is to trial it on patients. Next slide, please. This is what it looks like, and it's the size of your hand. Fits in your pocket. A study has been set up to compare the LACWA, it's called, with other testing platforms to measure equivalence in urine and saliva, ideally for child patients, and find a correlation between calcium measurements and symptoms of hypocalcemia. So we were about to start trials when COVID arrived and all non-COVID research was stopped, but we now hope we will be able to recruit our first patients before Christmas. Fingers crossed. We'll keep you posted. So on that news, I'll leave you on a high and I'll say goodbye. I hope this has been helpful. Thank you for inviting me and I hope you have a wonderful conference.
Yeah, so if you guys have any, we got about 10 minutes left, so if there's any questions.
Liz, is this something we can join in on as far as a calcium tester, or is this just for UK?
The trial will be in the UK. It'll only, I think there'll only be 30 patients around to start with. But obviously, if it takes off and we get funding, then it'll be for sale all around the world.
And this is for blood?
This is for blood, but it will also be for urine and saliva.
Wow. How awesome.
Fingers crossed.
Okay, I have a question here. It says, how long will trials take?
Good question. I'm not sure. I would imagine a good few months.
Okay.
We don't really have any details on the trial at the moment.
Another question, could children with Hypopara enroll in this clinical trial?
No, it's for adults only. But it will be used for children, hopefully, when it's up and running.
Okay. Okay, where is the best place we can go to donate for you?
Oh, thank you very much. To our website, please, at www.parathyroiduk.org. Click donate. That would be wonderful.
And donate you will.
Our membership is always been free. We survive on occasional grants and the goodwill of all our members.
Okay, any idea on how much the new calcium meter might cost once available?
It's not going to be expensive.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, Liz, how do patients with reduced...
Won't have to keep buying cartridges for it either.
I'm sorry, what was that?
And more than that, you won't have to keep buying cartridges for it either.
That would be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
How do patients with reduced calcium, how do patients do with reduced calcium if they have no PTH detectable?
I don't have any PTH. I don't take any calcium. It makes us feel better. If you have good levels of vitamin D3 and magnesium and a good level of active vitamin D, that's Rocaltrol for you, or PTH, then you don't need calcium tablets.
Okay. All right, yeah, okay. Let's see. Are there any more trials or studies in progress regarding a regimen like the one you described? I believe you said involves increasing vitamin D, magnesium, and decreasing calcium.
Yeah, no studies yet, but it'd be great to do one.
I agree. Such wonderful information. There are so many wonderful people saying you are awesome.
No comment, but thanks.
Oh, well,
I should say something that if you start taking vitamin D3, and we are all advised to take vitamin D3 during COVID, if you start taking vitamin D3, take magnesium with it at bedtime because the two work together. But be aware that this may increase your calcium levels slightly. And that is how you can then begin to cut down your calcium tablet gradually.
good to know.
Okay.
Good to know. Question, do you have a company that is to take it to market, assuming it works?
The tester? Takeda have been funding it, have been funding each stage of the work at the moment, so we'll be talking to them. We haven't got that far yet.
Understand. This is fun. I've never gotten to play the moderator before, so I'm reading the questions and going. And with brain fog, it's really fun. How does one find out about a good level of vitamin D3, magnesium, and activated vitamin D?
How does one find out about a good level?
Of vitamin D, magnesium, and activated vitamin 3 that could allow one person not to need calcium.
Well, this is something you need to do carefully with your doctor, really. Vitamin D3 levels should be up towards the top of the range. For us, it's 75 nanomoles. I'm not sure what the equivalent value is in America. So that's what your aim is.
Okay.
And enough of all of them to keep you hopefully at the lower end of the calcium range and without symptoms. It is a juggling act. I won't pretend that it's not, but it's one that seems to be worth doing.
Is there a similar risk of developing kidney stones by taking alpha-sidol like there is taking Calcichew? That was the European brand.
Calcium does cause kidney problems, and I think too much alpha-calcidol can, but it's important to keep everything in control so that you're not taking too much. The beauty of it is that if you're taking enough vitamin D3 and magnesium, you can actually reduce your alpha-calcidol.
Wow. This device, okay. This device will have to go through separate clinical trials in US in order to be made available here?
Probably.
Probably. And Dr. Levine, who's next, will hit on, he's also working on a calcium tester. So,
Great.
Like I said, the biggest thing we have right now is hope, because there are so many new things happening.
Yeah.
Any more questions? If not, Liz, this has been an awesome experience, and thank you so much for your help. You are just an inspiration to me, for sure, and I know to the rest of our population. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.